What is up, everybody? Week 8 of J Talk. For those of you keeping track at home, that is 2 months, and I could not be happier to be doing this. Right, Jay?
Absolutely.
All right. My name is Joshua Harper, and today I am joined by my esteemed co-host. What's his name this week?
James the Great Desantis.
Thank you guys for letting me on here. Love comic stuff, love nerdy stuff, so it should be awesome.
Yeah, as Jay
Also
pointed out.
known on YouTube by...
Ultimate Chance, even though most people know me as Whitey, the reviewer on YouTube.
Booyah.
There you go. For those of you that are also still keeping track at home, James Desantis is like the closest I have to a label mate right now. Our artist is the same. The guy that does our line work is the same guy, Ruben Mocho. So just a little quick plug for us there, James. I'm joined by my other co-host, Jerry One Hero.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out to another week of the J Talk podcast. We greatly appreciate you and your attention to our podcast as we try to use our creative endeavors on top of our thoughts and mind points and themes and view things to inspire and show people that, yeah, you can fail and still be great. So we hope you enjoy. We hope you appreciate it, and we're looking forward to the Batman versus Superman this week for sure.
Absolutely. That's exactly part of the theme for our discussion. Not Batman versus Superman, but comics versus manga.
No.
However, not manga. No, you're right. I'm wrong. I was like, I read that wrong. Comics versus novels. Yeah, I got you. You know what? You want to do this? Do you want to do this, Jay?
This week we have the topic that we're going to talk about, which is why a comic versus a novel. Because us three are basically writers with some artistic ability, but not to the level that we would want to pursue our creative endeavor as comic creators. So I personally came up with the question of asking, Josh and actually James, why a comic versus a novel? So that's the topic that we're going to cover into today.
Awesome. Now, it's worth pointing out something about James. James, how many books have you written versus how many comics have you written?
Okay, so books in terms of novels, I released 3 published, and then about 7 short stories published. And then comic-wise, we have 3 issues published, and hopefully 4 coming sometime in the next few months.
Awesome. So you've got, the best of both worlds. You got 1 and 2. You got novels and you got comics. So really excited to hear what you have to say. I've not really put a lot of thought into this before, so I'm looking forward to this.
The biggest thing to me is I've read comics since I was little, and I love to read books. A good novel is one of the greatest things to me. So when I started writing when I was a kid, my first thing actually was to do screenplay. That was what excited me. But then I moved into novels because you get such deep character development in a lot of these novels. And so that's what I went to. And I wrote all my books before I did comics. And but there's something about watching what you write and come to life on page and drawn that there's just nothing like it in the world. I'm sure now that you've done it, you can kind of. It's almost unbelievable. It's I wrote this scene out, but then to actually see it be played out, especially a fight scene or showing emotion on a character being drawn, it's just something to me is almost you can't capture it sometimes in a novel. Even though I do love to write novels, I really, in terms of seeing it and how it flows, and you can do so much in a page drawn, and that might take 2-3 pages to write. So I do love that as well. So it's always 50-50 for me. I like both, but watching your work come to life, even if it's still on the page, but seeing it is something special.
Absolutely. So before we dive into things, why don't you tell us about your story? Specifically, I guess the main one you'll probably be referencing the most tonight.
Can I intervene and ask these 3 simple questions to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty much I did the same thing with the other people before you, so it's more of who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Okay. The biggest thing is what you said. The YouTube stuff is kind of what I got fan base from, is doing video reviews and about video games and stuff. I love video games, but my passion since I was young was to write, and I wrote so many horrible stories that I hate to read these days, but I still have on file from when I was in junior high school, and then some in college. And then I stopped writing completely when I moved to Florida, came to here to Florida, and when I met my wife before we got married, she actually kind of was like, why don't you get back into writing now that, you know, it's been years? And I was like, I don't know, it's such a hard place to do. Got into it again. I was like, let's just redo my story, and I released Exterminators, which is kind of like one of the big novels I wrote in high school, and it was always a 5-parter, and I got the first 2 published, the third to be published later this year, and then I did Sparks, and Sparks to me is kind of probably what I'm going to talk about the most here. It's my superhero novel, and I hate like putting it in that genre because people think automatically, oh, another superhero, but to me, this novel is more than that because I wrote it in a lot of respect to people who are going through cancer and other diseases that are fatal, and that's what really it is, the novel, even more so than the comic. But the comic does deal with the cancer first and foremost, so it's a little slow burn in the beginning, but the novel is, to me, trying almost like a I'm sorry, sorry for all the people going through such a horrible disease. So it's, I'm a nerd first, so of course this comic stuff comes to me, like I love it, but also I like to talk about real issues in the world and interject that into my comics and novels.
Awesome, yeah. No, I like that approach. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, it was just like something that I actually discussed with who said it best? Trey talked to him last night, and he said that when us as writers are writing and creating, it's us using our voice to creatively express ourselves and our true selves to the world. People do blogging, people will write a book, they will write statuses, they will do whatever they want to, but then you have the chosen few that decide to go down that path to say, I'm going to use art to express myself, whether it is an artist or whether it's us as wordsmith or word weavers, as I like to call us. That's what we chose to do, and that's how we do it. So I agree wholeheartedly with what he said.
Definitely, word weavers. I like that. That makes me sound even better than novelist. I like it.
You know what I'm saying? Word weaver, baby.
Put that on your resume, your LinkedIn. I'm a word weaver, professional word weaver. Okay. So I guess like a big thing for me that I'm torn over is, as you said, with a novel, you can put so much detail in there. And for me, I'd rather just show you the detail. I'd rather like bring it to life and show these things around you, and do it in interesting ways. Like I'm not talking about just like being lazy when it comes to it. I'm talking about putting things in the background that you can bring up later, hiding little bits and pieces of information and lore into the world, weaving a little bit around the world without people kind of catching on just right away. And it kind of gives people the ability to go back and be like, wait, how long has this been going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of, and like almost an Easter egg before you know it's an Easter egg type thing. Like you're leaving like little drops to make it a bigger effect later on. Like Breaking Bad, in my opinion, does that almost flawlessly. They'll put stuff in like season 1 that you don't even realize is in season 5, and that's a big inspiration for me in terms of leaving like clues and little things behind that actually are meaningful later on in the story. They're not just thrown in for no reason.
Yeah. I like doing stuff like that. I like Easter eggs, basically. I like for those of you that know about Destiny, I've played Destiny, and I like the flavor text that mentions these things that are like way hidden in the game. Like I wish the game had a full story mode, but I like the idea of also having this like hidden lore behind things that you have to like look up. Like Bloodborne does it really well in the same way as like there's this mysterious. You've got to piece the clues together along the way. And I love that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with, especially the big fight between like a novel and a comic, the one thing I love about a novel that sometimes I fear comics can't get as much is, well, because when you're reading a comic, you're viewing it. But with a novel, you're creating this world in your mind. So it could be what these people look like, whatever you think they look like and sound like. And that's something you miss when you read. I mean, the sound, yeah, you can kind of make your voice, but you can't create a character in your mind, and then if it's not going, and then like when you read a novel and then you watch a movie, you're like, well, he looks nothing like what I pictured. You don't get that in a comic because when you read a comic, they're like trying to make the characters look as close to the comic as possible. So I think there's positives in both, but I think comics are. Especially now with all the movies and shows becoming more mainstream, and I'm so happy to see that because when I was growing up, people didn't read comics. It was like the only kid in class reading comic books, and now I got my neighbor's kid asking to borrow comics all the time to share with his friends. I mean, that's just crazy to me. Growing up, it's a totally different generation.
Yeah.
You know,
What do you think, Jay?
when you said the part about putting so much detail into things, I think one of the hardest things as far as creator relationships from writer to artist that you could ever have to withstand and deal with is if you have somebody that's excessive over the detail that they put into their work as far as writing a novel, but then when they decide to take that mentality over into comic books, that I feel like that would set you up for failure because of the fact that an artist is an artist. They do art things. I believe even Nicholas Draper Ivy said this in our podcast where he's met people that have said, okay, here's the character, and then he's like, all right, I'll get started. He said, no, wait, you got to do this way, color him this blue, color that, angle this, angle that. So a lot of detail eccentric writers don't really mesh well with a lot of artists because what you should do. I mean, not what you should do, but what you could do, or at least try to meet them halfway. Some people can do the laziest way, which is the Marvel way. He goes down the hall. He turns left. He shoots the man. Panel 2. And that's how Marvel writes their scripts, apparently, or wants their scripts written. So I felt like, detail, the more detail, the better. But I feel like it's a double-edged sword because there are artists out there that will use that and appreciate that. And then there are those that are like, I really don't need it. I'd rather just be able to do my own thing. Like, you focus on the writing, and I'll take care of the art.
Yeah, these are my tools. I went to a lot of people will say I went to school for this. I went to school to learn how to do this. Have you done that? Which is a fair point.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. When you work with Ruben, it might be the same. But when I work with Ruben, I describe a scene, like say for instance, when he finds out his cancer, I wrote a scene. I was basically like, have him sit in a chair and kind of not listen, almost like, but don't make it like every other scene in a TV show where they don't hear. I want him to hear, but almost like in a way where he's like seeing something dark and evil, and it's like I want whatever he sees to manifest into what cancer is. And then Ruben's like, I got an idea, and I totally was on board with whatever he came up with this demon, and I was like, well, yeah, but make like the person transform into the demon, and we like collab back and forth because if you just, like you said, if you just detail everything, you're not giving the artist any freedom. What's the point of writing? I mean, making a comic. The whole point is to have the artist have the freedom to create something beautiful, while you are almost like the leader, like the lead in. Like, here's my idea, you go along and make something even better. At least that's in my mind. That's when I make a comic. That's how I write it with Ruben.
Yeah, that's kind of how I try to approach. Speaking about Ruben, that's kind of how I try to approach it. I'm not always the best. I'm one of those detail-oriented writers. Like I said, I like to hide things in the background. I like to hide all these little bits and pieces of Easter eggs. No, but that's kind of what I try to do, is just kind of say, here's what needs to happen. Like, I needed this done in this many pages. I'll kind of number, these are the pages I want. This is what I like to have happen. Here's my idea. Like, if there's something specific that really comes to mind, and he asked me this in the beginning, is there anything specific that comes to your mind?
Yeah.
I'll go in and I'll be like, okay, I like this. This is kind of how I pictured this. And he's like, all right, let me do my work. And he goes, he does his work, he sends it back to me. He's like, how do you feel about this? I'm like, love it. Can we change this though? And then back and forth, like you said, that's all it takes, is a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah, I think the back and forth approach in comic world is gotta be the best way. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever tried to do a novel with another person. It's fucking insane. Are we allowed to curse on this? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. It's insane. I mean, you have two writers in a room. It's not easy. If you're working on the same book, it's not easy because the ideas barely ever mesh well. And then when you don't want to be rude, but then there's a point where you're like, you're changing my character, and That's not how it's going to happen, and it's just terrible. So working with an artist, like a comic art, like, you know, for art is so much easier. I mean, I love the process. I really do. If I had much more money, we would have like 10 issues out right now.
Well, that would lead me to one of my questions is, how do you feel about it? I mean, because there's a lot of people that really are just okay with it being a labor of love project if it's the money that they're putting in and not receiving anything back, versus where there are some that say, I know I'm doing this and I'm making this, but I want to, I want fame, or I want the riches per se.
I want to be more.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Everybody gets into something for a little bit of selfish reason and a little bit of, unless you're just going all in for money. But for me, it's always, I mean, everything I do, YouTube, all this stuff I do is to reach a bigger audience, to collab more, to create things that people can enjoy, because I have a full-time job. I make my money. I'm proud of my job outside of this stuff, but this stuff is my passion. And yes, if I can just sit home and create comics all day, I would love it if I could make money off of it. But I don't mind paying Ruben, and I understand where he's coming from. This is a guy who's going to college for this, and he knows, and I know full well, because I know artists that can get paid to do shitty jobs like menus and calendars and all this garbage that they don't want to do, but they can get much more money than I can pay him in a shorter amount of time with less work. So when he does all this design and stuff, we've been down the road where sometimes I'm just like, dude, I can't pay you. I never tell him to do something when I can't pay. So we always get to the point where I'm like, I can't pay you, so we're going to have to put it on hold. And I know for him it sucks, because I know how much he loves to create this type of stuff, but I also know how much work it is. So when I can't pay him to do this work, it's just it's a shitty feeling on both sides. Like, he wants to continue, but he doesn't want to just do all this and not get paid, because he has to make a living too. And I don't want to not pay him, but there's points where money is an issue. So I think that's the hardest thing, is the money. But I mean, that's everything. That's any business or anything that you're trying to go forward with. And I think you have to go into this wanting to create something that you want people to read instead of just making money off of it. Otherwise, you'll never. I don't think you can ever make it unless you get picked up by, like you said, like Marvel or DC or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be the worst thing that somebody could ever do, is when because people don't understand that the people that are in this industry came from the ground, like literally up. There is no, and a lot of people have this misconception of it's overnight. Oh, they wrote a really great story and it took off, and then now they're rolling in the dough. And it's like, I'll take something that most people probably don't even realize. Frozen was in production and got rewritten about 11, 20, 100 times before it even came to screen. People don't know that. That wasn't some overnight thing. They found a story from some guy that wrote it as the Ice Queen, I believe, and then they sat there, they passed it around, they put it under the rug, they put it in the back of Walt Disneyland, they put it in closets, they put it up, they bring it back out, they go forward, and that's the same thing people do when it comes to a comic book. There's a lot like that. Rob Liefeld just announced he was writing the new comic for Deadpool. Nobody knew about it. We don't know how long he had been writing on that, and we don't know how long he had been working to try to at least convince them into, going along with another Deadpool comic. I mean, yeah, he probably brought it around when the movie hype came up, but look how long it took for that movie to come up. I mean, it's so many things that go into a creative process that Ryan Reynolds would not have got that movie greenlit if he did not love what he does for a living. If he didn't love him and in his acting career on top of loving Deadpool, he wouldn't have done it. He didn't have to pay the money. It didn't matter how much money he had to pay. He loved it and he wanted to do it. It did not matter. So for being a writer, and if you do go the comic book route versus going the novel route, for me, that's saying that anybody that's doing that, it's a labor of love for them. They don't care if they make any amount of money. They don't care if they make anything back, because like I said, I write Infinite. I've been writing it for 2.5 years, and when I launched the Kickstarter and none of my out of the 500-600 people that were following me didn't back it, I was shocked, but I wasn't hurt, because I loved it. I learned a lot from that, and I moved forward because it was a story that I was making for me to prove to myself that if this is what I want to do, I'm gonna do it, and I need to know why I'm doing it. I need to know my why behind it. and it wasn't money, it wasn't fame, it wasn't the success of a Kickstarter. It was to create it, to watch it come to life, as James said earlier. To know that you're like, dude, you know, a year ago, a couple of years ago, these characters just laid on paper around my room, or they ran around in my head, and I never could picture them. And then now all of a sudden I meet this talented artist that took time out of their life and career to bring my characters to life. Even if it's on paper, I don't care. They're alive. They're alive. I can get this printed, put it on my wall, and look at it for motivation. That is priceless, and that's worth more than any amount of money could give me for my stories to be made.
I agree. That's it. That's what it is. And the best feeling in the world for me, like, I can care less how much money I make. The best feeling is when I get on like Amazon or Goodreads and I see a new review pop up for whether it's my books or my comic. It's like, to me, that changes my whole day. Even if it's not a very positive review, if it's a construct, like they go into detail what they thought could have been better, to me, they took the time to read my work. They didn't have to do that. That's like, to me, it's the greatest feeling in the world. I just love it.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. I mean, I think we should point out, Jay, you posted something about this on Facebook earlier, but I mean, if everyone makes a writer feel happy, it's just let them know. Let them know you enjoy it. You know, like subscribe or something like that. Let
man,
away. Yeah. No, it's because it's tough. It is. I think the biggest con going down the path of a creative is it is always going to be a labor of love. You will never not be investing your money. Oh gosh, my cat just jumped on my lap. You'll never not be investing your own personal money. You'll never not be investing your own personal time into this. It will, you know, even the big, like, even famous people, you know, the big creators, they take time. They take a lot of time that goes into creating. I don't think people realize how much time goes in, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It's not an easy thing. I mean, like manga creators, they like. Have you seen their schedules? It's something like they get like 30 hours of sleep a week in total, something like that. Less than that, like 3 or 4 hours a day spread apart.
Oh yeah, manga creators are. I mean, their lifestyle is. I just could never. I just couldn't.
It's so burnout. But it's, you know, that's what it takes to create. That's like. That's not an uncommon thing. That's why you see like a lot of different people working in comics. That's why you see different artists making comics a lot of times.
Sure.
And for me, like, that's one of the things where it's like I would not want to do novels because I know I get burnt out doing novels. For me, part of the magic of creating comes from when you get that, like you said, when you get that page, you have this scene imagined in your head the entire time, and all of a sudden you see it on paper. There's no feeling. There's no greater feeling. Honestly, it's like when you imagine your favorite book and you find a character, and you see it, and it's like, oh, that's cool. That's really cool. When you imagine it, and it's how you want it to be and stuff. Imagine if you then have that character in your head and finally saw it on paper, that this character that you had been working towards creating and you had been writing about, and you knew all these details about it that no one else knew. All of a sudden, it's a real thing. Like, that's an amazing feeling. You have no idea. I would recommend it. You know, get some concept art done. That's, you know, that nothing is honestly a better feeling than the concept art. In my mind.
I agree. It's definitely the best. It's the best feeling to just see scenes play out that. I mean, I'm sure you guys go through. It's just I like rethink scenes a million times before I even write it down, and just to see it finally come to life, it's almost a relief too, because then I don't have to envision the scene anymore. I can just look at it. But it's just amazing, and I just love to hear the feedback. I like to hear whether it's good or bad. I think it's important in the process to get negative feedback sometimes, unless it's just like your shit sucks. Then I just want to, you know, just goodbye. But if they go into detail, what can be better, the dialogue or the pacing, that matters to me. That helps me become, in my opinion anyway, a better writer.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's I really don't know why that's so overlooked as far as online goes, and I see that that's one thing any artist could clamor for or want more than anything, is to see somebody take the time to go, hey, your work is awesome, or hey, your work sucks. Any kind of feedback, like, that's just the rarest thing. It's like trying to find Mew or Mewtwo back when they were the first 150, 151 Pokemon. But it's like trying to find those rare needle in the haystacks of people that will comment. You get a lot of people that will like it. They'll like it in a heartbeat and then go on about their business. They'll just keep on scrolling, or they'll favor it, but they won't do anything else. They'll just keep on pushing. It's like, man, could you at least comment? And then it's like you go through a week of after posting something and one person drops a comment. You're like Aladdin was when Jasmine said yes. And he's like, she said yes. And now you're floating down on the carpet and ready to start a whole new world with you. No, I'm just but but it's like I think that's one of the biggest things. But I also think one of the things from a writer standpoint that is missed is going to conventions or finding a way to physically connect with people, because anybody can see a page or see something like that. I was just going over that with my sister, who's a musician, and she's like, I got so many followers, but not many people are doing this or doing that, supporting me here. And I'm like, well, they don't know you. Like, yeah, they see your music, they see your photos, but they don't know you. So I think that's one of the biggest things as a creator in general, is that we have to find ways to create and to connect with our followers or our audience or the people out there, to let them know that, hey, we're human behind here too. Hey, we do like the same things that you like, and so on and so forth. And that can translate over into more support as far as comments and things.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's so funny. I get more people who I don't know comment on my stuff than people who know me, especially like family and close friends. It's like they like it and they share it, but then I ask them, so what'd you think? And they're like, oh, it was good. I'm like, but did you read it? I mean, and it's insane. I'll get an IM from somebody like 2 weeks ago. I got an IM, and this person just out of nowhere on Facebook, I didn't even know this was possible. I thought you had to be friends with people, but she IM'd me, and she's just like, I love this part in your book, and I was like, who are you? And it was just a weird. It was awesome. And now my 2 seconds of somebody knowing me without me knowing them, but it's just crazy, and I get more of that, to be honest, than I do from my my friends I know who I talk to next door or whatever.
Right.
So I think the big thing I feel, the biggest drawback for me when making comics, because I don't really like making novels. Like, I'll be honest, I don't have the patience for it. It's not like laziness again. It's like I don't have the patience. Like, when I write my scripts, it's always just like replied, said. I don't have the patience to go through and do all the different things and make it personalized. Like, it frustrates me. But I think the biggest thing I dislike about making comics is you're kind of, like, as a writer, you're kind of in this awkward spot. You're kind of ostracized by, like, novelists, I feel. Don't take it the wrong way, James, but there's definitely, like, a distinction between novelist writers and comic writers.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, also people think that they're better than they are because they're a certain label, which to me, my mind is blown when people say that, because I feel like if you're a writer, you're a writer. Whether you write comics, whether you write TV shows, movies, or novels, because it all is so different, but it all takes a lot of work. I mean, just because a script is 1/4 of a novel doesn't mean it's not the same amount of work, because you're dealing with constant dialogue. Same thing with comics, really. You're dealing with far more dialogue to keep the viewer entertained. To me, it's just as hard as writing a novel in just a different way. So I understand where you're coming from, because I see people comment like that, and it just, to me, just blows my mind. I'm like, when you're a writer, you're a writer. It doesn't matter what you're writing, because it all takes work, for me anyway.
Yeah, no, like, that's something I've definitely felt is, like, every time I talk to, like, other writers, there's definitely, like, this, and I don't mean this to insult people, but I honestly feel like people look down on comic book writers as subpar. You couldn't write a novel, so now you write a comic.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree completely. They're two different things.
I mean, I don't know if you read some of my favorite comics are just as good as some of the best novels I ever read. I mean, if you guys ever read Why the Last Man or
Yep.
what did I just read? Sagas or I mean, there's just so many. Scott's run, right? Scott Snyder, is that
It's
right?
Scott Snyder.
Yeah, his run on Batman's
Oh,
phenomenal.
beautiful. We're gonna talk about that later.
No, well, not Scott Snyder. Is that Scott? Who's the one that's writing the comic, not the movies?
Yeah, that's
Scott Snyder.
Snyder, not
That's
Zack
Scott. Okay, I always get Zack Scott. Okay, Scott Snyder. He's a great writer. I don't know if you guys read Witch. That's pretty good. Like these comics, people just look past. But if somebody goes, oh well, comics don't have as deep a story, I'll give them an issue of Low and tell me that isn't as good as your best novel. I mean, people or Black Science or any of these amazing comics I've been reading over the last few years match any or at least close to the level of my favorite novels. So that to me is like a ridiculous statement. Though I do see it, I'm just saying I disagree. Same as you, that it's just ridiculous to say that.
Well, I actually, back when I first came on the scene as a creator, I posted that question in one of the biggest online art communities for comic books and storytelling and just artists in general. It was Ink Blazers back in the day, and I post there, and to my disbelief, a lot of the artists were like, "How dare you compare yourself to being an artist? You're just a writer. Like the artists are who make the comic book." And I'm like, really? Because I know some artists that have to write and create their own stuff, and they could use a writer. You know,
Ah, man, I agree with that.
two our heads are better than one. But I mean, if your specialty is art and somebody else's specialty is writing, I think you might want to do what's best for you. I mean, that only makes sense. But just to watch a lot of the people, some of the higher ranking artists on there, creators on there, to some of the lower ones we're literally siding with the side of, you're not an artist, you're just a writer, and you're kind of like just a writer. Like those are dime a dozen. I mean, those are yeah, you know, like, and I'm like, really? How are we a dime a dozen when everybody on the internet wants to draw too? Like, why has it got to be such a battle? And I've noticed that with indie things, it's just a big battle. But to know that the artist and the novelist look at comic book writers like as you are the underdogs and you don't matter because you're not the talent is what I really have gotten from it. Oh, you're not the talent. It's like, I'm not the talent because I'm not the one that gets hailed a lot. Because, I mean, yes, Jim Lee's a phenomenal artist, but his stuff wouldn't do as good if he didn't have a good writer. Why do you think he pays writers to write his characters or right alongside him?
Oh yeah, I love manga, I really do. But the majority of manga I read, the problem with their stories suffers by them being the sole writer and artist. And the reason why is because usually artists, it's hard to write and draw. And when you do have the talent, like certain ones, I don't know if you guys ever read like Parasite. To me, that's an artist who had a story in mind and just drew it with it. And those are amazing. It especially comes from Japan mostly. I've never read a comic in America where it was just simply the artist writing too, because to me, it's you got to be a co-op thing. It can't just be one. It never is. And sometimes the art is beautiful, like Old Man Logan, the new one, but the story is fucking shit.
Are you talking about the Secret Wars one?
Is it the secret? No, the newest one, the one that's being written out. Yeah, I read like the first issue. I'm like, this is horribly written, but it's beautiful to look at. But then there's an opposite where I think the art is ugly. Like I hate, and I can't believe you might find a shot. I hate Frank Miller's run on Daredevil's art. I think it's the ugliest art, one of the ugly, or Dark Knight Returns, ugliest art I've ever seen. But I love the stories in them because they're captivating. So I think sometimes I can let it go a little bit more with comics because they're either visually pleasing or well written, and I can kind of look past the other. But I don't think that a lot of comic artists really could do what they do without a writer. I mean, they just can't. The writer's kind of the the head of everything, and then they're the paintbrush. They're doing the art part. So yeah, no, I don't agree with that either. That's crazy. Just look at Naruto. That's shit.
Well, that's why I'm a fan of stories that are short. I love like when a comic gets 8 issues, I'm like, beautiful. Like Omega Man. I don't know if you're reading, if you've read Omega Man at all, James. I don't know if you have, Jay.
My friend keeps telling me to read it. He says it's
Oh,
amazing.
it is beautiful. But it got like a 12-issue run. I was like, you know what? That's good. That's good. That's all you need. Tell a story, beginning, middle, end, and be done with it. If you want to do more after that, it's one thing. But don't overcommit, because that's how you end up with like Bleach and Naruto, especially on a weekly basis. You're just dragging it out nonstop.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue. Like, I love long comics, or not long, but like you said, they're either going to be short or they hit the right spot where there's like maybe 10 graphic novels. I always think that's like the best. Or, but like Naruto, Bleach, those guys, they obviously, what happened is they became famous and didn't know how to stop. And I'm worried that like someone like Attack on Titan, like he's going to follow the same thing, which I hope not. But that's what happens when you get famous in Japan. They want to draw. Not that they don't do it here. I mean, Marvel does it, DC does it, but Image, since it's not a paid company, that they don't pay you, they just basically pay you whatever you make and partial. Those don't usually last as long, but they feel so much better. They feel like a perfect length, and that's, I can go on days about things that should have ended earlier or should have continued. I won't even start on that route, but yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's tough? Do you think that's tough as a writer when you feel like you have that story that could be one of those where it's in such a world that many obstacles can exist and you feel like you can't just tell one story? I personally suffer from that with my story like Infinite, but I think when you're writing and you're paying or publishing it your own out of your own pocket, that could really become a concern, as if you're like, man, is this story something that I can complete beginning, middle, and end?
Yeah.
You know, because I think that would suck, to start something and you can't, to where you end up like, wow, I do have this story that's very similar to the Naruto or the One Piece or the Bleach, where it's this mega long story and you're like, man, these are so many obstacles I want him to complete, and it's just, I can't take this out of the story, I can't take that out, it's just got to be this way, that's how it's got to be. But it's like, how long is that artist going to be there for to draw for you, and how long are you going to be able to support that? So it's like, maybe as a writer paying for an artist, it's better to start out or just to limit yourself until you get to a point where you can create longer stories by doing short ones, or 5 issues, or 8 chapters, or whatever the case may be. That's something that I'm currently struggling with myself right now, so that's why it's kind of like close to home.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. And with Sparks, the huge thing that changed for me from novel to comic is my novel was a complete story from beginning to end. There was nothing, like I left it a little open at the end, but it was over. That was the end. And then I made this world where in my mind I always had an idea to expand it afterwards if I wanted. So with the comic, totally different. Well, not totally different. I still had the main theme, but adding an Owler was something that I never planned on, but I kind of loved writing him. And then adding in all these other superheroes from other people, I had a thing where I told people to contribute, and for once, people like slammed me with like 10 different superheroes to put into my story. And they wrote like 3 pages on their heroes, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. So I had to throw those in there, but I didn't throw all of them in there. And building a world to me is exciting, but like you said, when you get to the point where, well, all these heroes, but then you have all these damn stories, and then you don't finish. But I feel like if you have a set story, like I know where Sparks the comic is going to end at issue 15, and then if I want to continue, certainly can. I planted all these seeds. But you want to contain a story to the point where somebody finishes reading and they're like, that was good, which I know we're not talking about Batman vs. Superman yet, but that's something that I probably want to talk about, and the problem that movie did compared to what I think you should do as making a standalone film, but leaving seeds behind to create more.
Well, it wasn't more of that. It was just more of less, being a writer and then you're working with an artist. If you don't have that artist contracted for a certain amount of things, it kind of would sting to know that you have this story that you want to tell from beginning, middle, and end, but you just don't have that ability with one artist. And I guess it's a mixed thing for me, because more or less I feel like I should have to start something, and finish something with one artist. Where I know in the comic world, that's not really, they don't really care. They're like, hey, look, this artist can't do it anymore. Or he's stepping away, or he has something to do. We're gonna get somebody else in to take over and do it from there.
Yeah.
I've never. That's a foreign concept to me. I don't know if that's gonna limit myself or limit other writers that may feel the same way as me. Instead of that, but it's like that's one of the things I think you can control when you're writing a novel is that you yourself are fully responsible and you can finish it, what you start. Whereas a comic book, if you don't have that mentality that, well, whatever it takes to get it done, I'm going to do, it's going to be a tough road for you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, comics are a tougher thing because it's two people in there, and you never know what happened. Like you said, the artist gets busy or the writer gets busy, no money, like kind of what's happening to me right now with Ruben, and things like that happen, and it sucks because as a writer, and I'm sure you all agree, you want to finish. You don't ever want to start some and not finish it because these stories are in our heads, and if they're not getting out, then they're not done and they're not completed. Like. And for that to happen, especially with an artist, especially like you said, changing an artist, it sucks because not that a new artist can't bring something new, but you've worked so long to build this bond to create something that you have now created and look, and then somebody comes in and changes it. And there's very few times that I notice no transition like problems. Like if anybody here reads Rat Queens, when they got the new artist, I hardly noticed the difference, like maybe a little bit, but the new artist kept in vain like the spirit and vision that the original one did, even though that guy was a little bit crazy. But yeah.
Yeah. See, that's kind of like another reason why I like writing comics is because it makes it easier to do a closed system story. Beginning, middle, end. Like my philosophy, I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast before, but my philosophy when I create a comic is I don't do chapters, I don't do page limits or numbers. I say I'm gonna write this story. It's gonna have a beginning, a middle, an end, and I wanted to accomplish this. And so I sit down and do that, and I get my pages. And whatever those pages are, like that's what I get. Chapter 1 of Dizzy is in the 30s for pages. That's fine by me. It sets out. It does what I wanted to do, and I'm happy with it. So why would I want to all of a sudden start extending it or shortening it? Like it is what it is, and it is finished. I can walk away from Dizzy now with a finished product. In terms of it's a complete story, and I like being able to do that. I don't feel like I get that with novels. I feel like with novels, it's always building and building and building. You have chapters. You have like if I wrote a book, I wouldn't be like I don't like chapters. Like I hate the concept of chapters in comics because I feel like it's just this arbitrary gateway that breaks up the story reading process. You know.
Yeah, I mean, with comics, I'm more inclined to not have chapters. Like when I finally have all my first 5 issues, I plan on making a graphic novel, and I'm not going to cut them into issues. I'm just going to have one straight run because it feels more natural that way. Whereas books, to me, it's the opposite. I actually love chapters, and the reason why is because when I finish a chapter, I have that like when I play a video game, I finish the level, and it's like really exciting. It's like, oh, I can breathe again, and it's really weird, but that's what I get when I read a novel. Is like I get to an end of a chapter, and usually an end of a chapter either ends on a really happy note, a really bad note, or and then you just don't know what's going to happen until you read the next chapter, and that's exciting for me. Whereas a comic, when you read a graphic novel, it can run straight through, and sometimes I'll be like, I wonder where that issue ended and where the next one began, because it runs so smoothly as one big story. So I guess it all depends. I'm like 50-50. Like I love it in comics without issues, but I'm more inclined to I love chapters in like reading a novel.
Yeah. What about you, Jay? What do you prefer?
Say what?
What do you prefer? Do you prefer like the comic setup where it flows seamlessly, or do you like the chapters and the issues and
that was one of the things that I recently thought of too, and it's kind of like where if you're going to do it the chapter route, you would almost make it like you'd make each chapter or you'd make each episode count per se, but I always thought that a graphic novel would be the route you'd go for a seamless reading experience for somebody, because I feel like graphic novels are more like the movie and the films of the comic industry, and then that the comic books that go issue by issue are more like the TV series. Because you look at the Batman series or all like a lot of the superhero series, and they're all issue by issue as if it were a live television show. Whereas if you have The Killing Joke or the V for Vendetta, those were compiled in the graphic novels and made to be one seamless reading experience. So that's kind of like my outlook on it, is that a lot of the stories that I have in mind, since I set out with wanting to write films anyway, are starting to gear more toward the graphic novel, where as a creator, it's like, well, do I really want to release it, chapter by chapter, or do I want to just work on it in secret and put it out a little by little for people to see until it's all the way done and then put it out? That's my struggle. It's like I want to know if it's something that people want to read before I invest this time. But that's what I would honestly say, is that, to cut it short, I view graphic novels as the movies, the one shots, the movies that one and done, it's out of there, and then the comic book as the television shows.
Yeah.
And I struggle with wanting to create television show comic books versus just a graphic novel. So like I said, I think I'm more of a graphic novelist, I guess. I don't know.
All right, final question then, Jay. Answer this. So you'd rather write comics and graphic novels than you would write novels and short stories and things like that?
Yes, because whenever I've tried to write stuff via Word as a novelist, it's always bugged me, because I'm like, I want to know what it looks like. It's in my head. I need it out. And I know everybody says you can do the whole, well, write a novel, but make somebody illustrate the bigger moments of the story. No, and no. I'm always going to be the writer for the visual medium, because I want to tell film. I mean, I want a film. I want a television series. I want something of that visual medium. So I'm always going to be a comic book head to the heart.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't read enough novels or books. I just can't. I'm sorry. I'm too visual.
Fair enough. See, I've already expressed I don't really like writing novels. I'd rather write comics. I agree with Jay. I tend to err on that side. Not to say that there's a problem with writing novels. It's not for me. But James, I'm curious. You've done both. Extensively. You've done a lot of both. Which do you prefer?
Just wait 1 second. 1 second before he goes. And that's not to say that me or Josh may prefer to write comic books, because there's a lazier route to doing it. It's just, it's not even that. It's
a visual medium over a text medium.
Right, but because you have to do a little bit more work with novels, I feel like what people would view it as. But it's like, I can do the same work a novelist does and still put it into a script and give it to somebody. I just prefer to see my words come to life versus just having the reader bring it to life themselves.
Yeah. All right, so James. Yeah, go ahead, James.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's really hard, because it's like pros and cons of both. The process can be more fun doing a comic, because, as you said, the best feeling in the world is seeing your stuff come to life on paper is amazing. But at the same time, as a novelist, writing a whole novel, like right now I'm writing a novel at work, which I don't even know if I should be saying I don't work for work, but so I'm writing this novel, and I have to say, like, to me, envisioning my characters and writing them down, and then having a few close people to me read it and get the reaction, there's just nothing like it, because they all vision it their own way. They put their own spin on it. And one of the coolest things ever is when I put out Sparks and I sent it to a bunch of people for review copies, just random people on YouTube and everything, totally people I didn't know who didn't have my thought process or heard anything about it. One girl just went on and said, "Man, I really love the fact that Ethan Hamill, who's the main character, is that he's of Arabic descent." And I was like, what? I didn't say that, but I remember in the book I leave a lot of my characters and their backgrounds to the viewer as who whatever they really want to label it as. And I guess because I never said that, people just assumed that he was a different race, even though I just basically Ethan Hamill is just taking one of my favorite actors, two of my favorite actors, and combining their names, Ethan Hawke and Mark Hamill. So I don't know why people thought that was for some reason Arabic descent, but either way, it was really cool because with words you can just create this world. And I just read one of the greatest trilogies in my life right now. It's called The Red Rising, and I love comics, but there's nothing that's matched that for me in epic scope and living it as reading the words. But it's really hard as doing both. What I prefer, I love to do comics. It's something special that I've never done till recently, and I'll do it. And as long as I have money, I'll keep doing it. But I think I'll always be wanting to write a new novel because I write so much. I literally have 15 unpublished products that all I need to do is edit, but that's my laziest thing is editing. And if I did edit, I would have like 50 fucking novels published by now. But I just get really lazy. But I love to write. I can write forever if I was given the chance. So I think I'm a little bit more inclined to write books, but I love the process of comic writing. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, you're one of those people, huh?
Yeah.
All right. So wrap up that discussion. Jay, you and myself, we like writing comics. James, you like writing novels. It's cool. I love it. Love these discussions. Love these chats. We're going to do something completely different now for our own edification. James, have you seen Batman vs. Superman?
No. But I am seeing it tomorrow night. I have a lot of close friends because in the reviewing community, the cool thing is that you get to really get close friends with people who like to do the same thing. And I was invited to a bunch of screenings. The only thing is I don't live in New York anymore, so I can't go to any of them. So, nice. But I've had 4 friends who have gone, and 2 of them are huge DC fanboys. One is a Marvel fanboy, and one just doesn't give a crap about either one.
Really quick, are you gonna be spoiling anything about the story?
No, unless you guys want me to, but I won't. The only spoiler I know is the ending, which I guess is a pretty big spoiler.
Only slightly.
Only a little bit, but I'm not going to spoil it for anybody here.
All right, I'll have a spoiler alert up. I'll take down the spoiler alert.
Unless you guys want it. I mean,
okay. I'm going to see
I don't either.
Okay, but yeah, I've heard a lot of mixed things. I think with critics, I didn't think this was going to do critically well to begin with, but I didn't think it was going to be like Green Lantern ratings.
I think it's because they just so used to Marvel's way, and if it's not Marvel's way, it's the highway, which I think is very unfair. But
I mean, the thing is, and that's what I first thought. Like when I first was seeing reviews, I was like, okay, maybe they're just thinking it should be a little bit brighter and so on. But my friend, now this is my friend who's the biggest DC fanboy, and he's scary, like fanboyish, to the point where he will not admit any Marvel movies are even slightly good. So he's just a little crazy. But he came out of that movie, and I texted him, and I'm like, so the verdict. So whatever he gave it, I would lower my expectations. And he said, I can't wait for Batman, and that's it. I was like, well, what about this movie? He's like, let's just say I just want to see Batman. I don't want to talk about this movie. And I was like, well, what? He won't even talk about it. He won't acknowledge it. He thinks that it's just there, and he's moving on. And my other friend went into full detail, but as you said, I won't say any spoilers or anything. I will say that I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I like the idea of what they did, but then I heard they kind of were like, no, we can't do that, and changed it. So I'm kind of upset about that. But I mean, we've been, with the trailers, I feel like, this is a big thing, not just this movie, a lot of movies, but trailers just really, I think, told us the whole story. Like my friend said, you literally know the whole movie. I was like, so the whole third act isn't different, like Zack Snyder was saying? He's like, no, it's exactly what you think it's going to happen. I was like, oh. So that kind of bummed me out.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I like Watchmen to a degree, but I don't know how I feel about Zack Snyder.
I think he's visually he's amazing. I liked Watchmen a lot, but he worked with one of the best graphic novels of all time. So that's kind of an easy one. But he's
the M. Night Shyamalan of comic book movies. So.
Yeah, it kind of is.
He's getting worse as he goes on.
No, he's full of himself, and he's got the wrong people behind him hyping him up, telling him to go ahead and yeah, man, we're gonna give you reins over the the universe, man, and we want you to take it and take away and do it." And he's like, "Sure, cool. Oh, okay, I guess I am doing something right." Fail, 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 fail.
I
I don't know. I want it to be good, and I'm not expecting a lot out of it, so I don't think I'll get too much. Like I'm not hyped. Like I don't get the idea of hype behind it. And honestly, Jay can attest to this. I've been saying this for a while. I'm honestly more excited for Suicide Squad than I am for Batman versus Superman.
So am I. Yeah.
Like, without a doubt, I think
that's the Marvel fever. Everybody's fiending for the realistic characters instead of the superhero characters, which is why I don't know to this day why superhero movies are quote unquote supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread all of a sudden, because you're taking superhero characters that are supposed to do superhuman things and you're dumbing them down. You're putting too much water in the Kool-Aid with less sugar to try to make everybody drink it.
See, I don't think you're gonna get that with Suicide Squad. I'm not predicting that.
It's not gonna be a superhero. It's not gonna be superhero, but it's gonna be the story everybody wants, because that's why everybody chooses Batman over everybody else in DC side.
See, I don't like the idea of people like Deadshot being humanized, because Deadshot's a straight like jerk. He doesn't care about any, like he'd shoot his mother through the shoulder and injure her if it meant getting a bounty. Like, he doesn't give a hoot. And I don't like there's this humanization going on. So I'm not looking forward to that. But I think in total it's just going to be a better film. I don't think there's going to be a lot of humanizing. I mean, how much can you humanize a human crocodile?
Well, I think the thing is people want to be more relatable to these characters. And I think certain characters really do benefit from that. I think Winter Soldier is the best superhero movie of all time. And the reason why I think it is because you finally get, one, the real Captain America, two, you get all that crazy action that you want in a superhero movie, three, you actually get a story that's not just convoluted and all this bullshit throwing in exposition of superpowers. And my biggest thing is that the action, well, there's CGI moments, it's very down and gritty, and that's what Captain America should have been in the first movie. But then you could get these big explosions. Superhero movies that are a lot of fun. I still think Avengers is one of the best. The first one, not the second one. Avengers is one of the best. And Guardians of the Galaxy, super fun. And but not, and then I like the darker stuff, like Dark Knight, not Rises, that was horrible, but Dark Knight was absolutely, in my opinion, one of the greatest superhero movies. And then you got TV shows like Daredevil are just stepping it up like 100-fold in terms of making.
We're not caught up yet, so don't spoil it for us.
Yeah, don't spoil anything for us.
Oh, okay. I'm still not done either. But what a show! I mean, even the first season is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, here's my thing: is when people talk about people being humanizing, like Iron Man's humanizing, Bruce Banner's relatable, Captain America is basically me. Like, I don't see that. They're not human characters. They're superhuman characters. I think you get way more humanization in shows like Jessica Jones, Daredevil.
Oh, well, definitely.
Yeah, and part of that comes from them just being longer. By virtue, they are longer. You will have more time with them. You've had more. If you've watched all of Daredevil, you've had substantially more time with him than you have any character in the movies.
Yeah, and they're character pieces too versus action movies.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's where you should be going for the humanization. I don't like the idea that it's in these movies with these people that by no stretch of the word have any place being human, basically.
Which is why I was going to say I really think they should be using the TV shows as their comic books to build up to their AKA graphic novels. They should be using the TV shows. They should make a TV show that can tie in all of these different heroes to the movie. Instead of, they have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that's doing it for Captain America, and then it leads for the Avengers, but that's it. I literally had somebody today at work that I don't even know that doesn't even really watch stuff. He said, answer me this. When Thor is out there fighting, trying to save the world, getting his butt whooped, where are the Avengers? Why aren't they coming to save him? I'm like, well, these are their own independent movies to show them as independent characters. I don't care about that. If you were Batman and I was Superman and I'm getting beat, I would expect you to fly in there, stop a couple of bullets, and save my girlfriend Rachel and Harvey Dent from becoming Two-Face. I'm like, well, it doesn't work that way. But for a lot of people, they want to know, like, when are we going to spend more time with the characters? And you wonder why Captain America's movie is considered the best out of all of them is because you watched him come from the beginning, from young to the top. But he's the most relatable on Marvel, I think, out of everybody so far.
I agree.
He's the human guy. He's the average guy, and yeah, so.
Yeah, it's a kind of it's a hard thing, really. I understand why people want more and more characters to kind of get into their movies and stuff, and that to me as a comic fan is so cool to see in person. Like if you told me 10 years ago there'd be an Ant-Man movie where Falcon's in it, I'd be like, yeah, okay. But we actually got that, and I was just like, to me that's stunning to have that happen, and it's people want it so much, but this stuff 10 years ago was not happening, and now it's happening where we're getting movies where all the heroes come together, like Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron. Even if it's not as good, Age of Ultron, it still had so many power actors and their own stories, their independent stories coming in. And now it feels like phase 3, right? We're in phase 3.
Phase 3.
We're getting those movies where now people are in their other movies. Thor and Hulk are going to be in their movie. Guardians is all of them again, and probably more. Civil War is like everybody but Thor and Hulk. And Ant-Man and Wasp now, and I'm sure we'll have a cameo from someone. And then you got the Netflix shows where Defenders is coming in 2 years, so they're leading them all into shows and mentioning them. I don't know if you've seen the 3rd episode of Daredevil, but they mentioned Jessica Jones, not show her, but that she's a part of this universe. So. I mean, I think it's cool that they're building up towards this slowly, just like the comics, where they introduce a character and then maybe in like 2 novels later you finally get them teaming up. So it's definitely a slower process. I get like people are like, well, why doesn't Thor come down and save Earth? But Thor got shit up in Ragnarok, so let him do his thing.
I don't know. For Batman versus Superman, I don't honestly know how I feel about Justice League, especially because it's not even like my favorite incarnation of Justice League. I loathe Cyborg being on the Justice League. I don't know about you guys, but I hate it. He is not a Justice League member. He will always be a Teen Titans member.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with the lineup. I have a problem with the fact that we need these movies to be diverse, and so far none of them sound diverse at all. They all look dour and really melodramatic and dark, and not to have all these happy, fun movies, but I mean, if The Flash isn't going to be fun, that's not a Flash movie for me. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess this is more of a dark, grittier world, but Batman vs. Superman, I'm okay with it being dark. This is not my favorite Superman at all, but this is my favorite Batman. He works well in this dark, gritty world of beating the crap out of people. But then again, I'm not going to spoil the stuff that they do, but it's not my favorite incarnation to begin with for this universe. And like you said, they're adding characters like, I don't even know why Cyborg's there. Like, I get he's a cool Teen Titan, but he's not even, nobody cares about him on the Justice League. So it's a waste of opportunity. They can add so many different characters.
Hawk Girl and Hawkman. Aren't they?
I just feel like if they're gonna tap into the superhero market, they should only really do the characters that work well in the film universe. Like Superman doesn't. Nobody really gets him. There are a lot of people that appreciate him, but there aren't that many directors that are like Michael Bay would do a phenomenal Superman movie with no plot. He would do a phenomenal one. He'd do him incredible justice. You'd see Superman doing everything we know and love. But that's not what people run to the theaters for. They want to go to the theaters to see realistic stuff. That's why everybody's like, Ant-Man did good. What? Because Ant-Man was a realistic story. It was father, daughter, so on and so forth. And Captain America and Batman. You look at all of the Avengers lineup, Iron Man only did good because of the humor of Robert Downey Jr. You take him out of it, it's nothing. Thor's they had to add love into that to make it somewhat reasonable for people to want to see it. Incredible Hulk, oh wait, love again. So it's like they humanize these other characters when they shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it cripples them.
Yeah, the biggest thing with the movies, I feel, is like they have to pander towards the mainstream audience that want, like you said, like a love story or some reason to care, but they don't want to just diminish the comic fans. And I think like Marvel hits that balance a little bit better. It's not to say I love DC stuff for certain stuff anyway, and I believe comic-wise they both have their goods and bads about even. But movie-wise, I just DC just doesn't get it. And I thought maybe with Batman vs Superman they were going to go a different route and go, fuck the mainstream, we're just doing comics. But I have heard from people who are big comics fans that they're still like, oh, wasn't that good? And that's not good. If you can't even pander towards the big comic crowd and you lost the mainstream crowd, that's really bad. But you know, it's. I mean, I don't know what you guys felt about Man of Steel. I thought it was pretty bad. I thought it was just like really boring and dreadful. And the only thing I liked were the fight scenes because I thought that was the most Superman we've ever had. But then he was killing a million people, so you know, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the whole DC universe in terms of movies.
I just think that we have bad. Like, they have some guy at DC, and I say this as someone who loves DC. I buy mostly DC comics. I read mostly DC. I just feel like there's someone there who's like just making these really bad decisions. Cause it might be Zack Snyder for all I know. If I end up regretting this, oops. But he wasted so much time with Man of Steel. I honestly think Michael Bay could have made a better version of Man of Steel. And it sucks because I think Henry Cavill is actually really, really good as Superman. I don't know how you all feel, but that's how I feel. And I think. Okay. I think a lot of the stuff they're wasting a lot of their resources. I'm honestly really scared going into the DC cinematic universe because it's going to be lasting for a while, from what I understand. They got a lot of plans.
Yeah.
And I know Marvel had a rocky beginning with Incredible Hulk. It wasn't necessarily the best one, but if you're making all these films, like, you got to have a vision that's working. And clearly, the one with DC isn't working. I want Man of Steel. I didn't dislike Man of Steel. I just felt like there was so much wasted time. It was boring. Like the beginning went on forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all this stuff, and the fight scenes were cool. But again, he's killing a million people. It's like, all right, you know, come on. This is equally the most Superman we've ever had, and the least Superman we've ever had.
Yes, that is the best way to describe Man of Steel. It's the most Superman we ever had, but the least. Like, he's the least like any Superman I've ever read in a comic, yet he's the most in terms of the fight scenes and the first time he flies and stuff like that, or when he gets a suit, his moments are great. And I feel like Batman vs. Superman is going to have those. Like that warehouse scene, from what I've heard and just seen, when Batman knocks out all those guys. I mean, that is Batman. That's the Batman that I read when I pick up Scott Snyder's run, and I'm reading that Batman. That's what I envision, or the Arkham games. So that's what I want to see in my Batman. But Superman, when I see Superman, I want hope. I want someone who is a god but looks down not on us but to protect us. That's what Superman is supposed to be. And the Superman I see in the movies, I would be scared shitless of that Superman if he came near me. Just because he doesn't seem like a nice guy. He seems like a really scary god who you don't know if he's going to protect you. I don't know. I don't get that feeling of security with that Superman, where I think even Superman Returns, did a better Superman, though it was a terrible movie, but better Superman.
Yeah, that's why I actually enjoyed the movie, is because I liked that Superman.
Yeah, that Superman was good.
I didn't dislike Superman Returns, actually. I thought it was better than Man of Steel.
I would watch it over Man of Steel again. I don't think I could ever watch Man of Steel.
I don't know, Jay. What do you think? You're a big Superman.
Well, you know, personally, to know that the machines that Zod used in Man of Steel were complete ripoffs of the Reapers from Mass Effect annoyed the living hell out of me. And then you give us this Avatar-esque planet for whatever reason, and then we spend so much time trying to care for Superman's parents, for what reason I do not know. And then you finally give us Superman, but you give us this grown baby that doesn't know how to do anything, and for some reason doesn't use his father to train him at all. You want us to spend time with him. His parents got killed. He comes to Earth, and when he's learning how to become himself, when he finds out his father's hologram comes alive to teach him like it was supposed to be done. Not, oh, I'm going to show up when you need me most to meet your weird girlfriend even though I'm dead. Like, it was a weird movie to watch Superman be a hobo, swim out of water, steal people's clothes, and run around looking like old man Logan's lost child. Like it was extremely confusing for me as a Superman fan because I went in expecting the Superman that I've always seen, but this was his way of saying this is a grittier upbringing, origin story for Superman. And then, of course, like I said, the whole breaking the neck of Zod. I really think Superman would be a lot smarter than to break the neck of the last person that could bring the lineage of his people back.
Yeah.
But he did, and he couldn't fly away with them. He couldn't he couldn't do the freeze breath. He doesn't know how to do that yet, apparently, either. So that was the only thing he knew how to do. But it was Zack Snyder's way of saying this is a reason to give him a reason to never kill again. And I'm like, yes, because his parents did not raise him at all. We don't know what they did.
I honestly,
I don't care. I didn't care for the movie. I mean, I watch it, but I mean, it's not my favorite. No.
I honestly feel like the movie would be just way better if they just cut out the entire Krypton stuff and was like, look, there's a planet, like how they used to do it in the old like 50s cartoons, 50s, 60s cartoons, like faster than faster than a locomotive, blah blah blah, blah all that stuff, like from the planet Krypton. That I feel like that just would have been a better intro than the 30-minute pile of garbage that's not even like canonically accurate and no one
trying
enjoys.
to humanize him. Trying to humanize. Stop doing that.
Did you guys ever read? I don't think they're amazing or anything, but you ever read Superman Earth 1?
Mm-mm.
Okay, those are my ideas of if you're going to try to humanize Superman, that's a better way to go, and they're not very good either. But like, if Man of Steel was going to go for that angle, he should have just went with that angle of having, you want to make us care about Superman in a human way, make Zod come to Earth like in Earth 1 and trick him, make him feel like he's a lowlife, make him feel like, hey, we have to build our people again, and I'm here to help you, take care of this world, and then trick him, make us care about Superman. When Zod came with a force of people, I was like, well, Superman's obviously gonna fucking win. I mean, he's Superman. So I felt no risk. I felt no scare that he was maybe gonna lose. It was just a very paint by the numbers book in terms of like just doing what every other movie does, but then you have like cracking Zod's neck. A lot of people get upset about that, but to me, it's like the least thing I'm mad about. I'm more mad about the fact that, like you said, the beginning drags on, and that Avatar-looking creature and the whole world, it just didn't matter to me. I didn't care, and then the whole 30 minutes after that, also I didn't care, and the dialogue's dreadful. I mean, it's horrible. It's written by Goyer, who I think is a terrible writer anyway, but there's so many things in Man of Steel that piss me off, and the only thing that it gets right is the fight scenes. But then when you look in hindsight of Superman, who's supposed to protect us because he's a god and supposed to protect this world, not giving a shit about this world, it just really kind of bums me out. I mean, you got Dragon Ball Z, who's written by Akari, who's basically a comedy writer, saying, let's go to the desert to protect people, and then this guy's like, whatever, let's just destroy the whole city of Metropolis. Yeah. So, I don't know.
See, I have a secret suspicion that they might say something like, we're going to make an Injustice film. If I were going to reset the DC universe again,
it would be my dream. It would be my dream to see Injustice on screen.
I think they should just take that direction with the whole. If Batman versus Superman is as bad as people say it is, I think it is the perfect setup for Injustice. That's what I think.
I think the thing is, like, I think what DC's testing right now is they have their TV universe and they have their movie, and if people could follow both, I think they should go for otherworld stories. I mean, Injustice is literally one of the greatest things I've read from DC in years. Sure, it's like kind of faltering right now, but every other issue gets really good again. So I really love Injustice. That is, to me, DC's way of making a very entertaining story with icons that we love. So why not go with that again? I feel like that would be the best thing. And if they're going for a Batman movie, they don't do Court of Owls. It's just a waste of a movie.
Yeah, now's the time to do it. Cordalis is really
They
good.
should if they were gonna do this as the Dawn of Justice, they should have just did Justice League War without Darkseid and made him somebody else.
Yep, I agree.
They should have brought that origin. They should have brought that origin in and made it to where they were all coming. They were all doing their thing. They all came together. Oh, that's right. They didn't want to. They don't have Green Lantern cast. They don't want to use the Flash from the TV series or Green Arrow from that series. And they, yeah. So good job. You know,
Yeah.
whatever.
I don't get it because their TV series popular, their animations popular, their comics. I mean, not to say they're popular. They're usually behind Marvel, but for the most part, they sell a lot,
Mhm.
and people like them. What is going on with the movies?
Yeah,
Like,
it's strange. It's a strange thing. It's got to be that. Well, I mean, I know these departments and everything. Obviously, the movie department
yeah,
is not on the same page as the animation department or the comic department or apparently even the TV department in terms of creating these icons. They I don't think they have the right. I don't even know what to call it. The leader, or they're not a showrunner, a movie runner. Whoever's deciding these.
producer.
Yeah, whoever's the big head producer on all of these movies, I can't imagine him sitting there watching these final edits and going, "Well, this is good." No, there's just no way that's happening.
Yeah, I. It's funny because Batman vs Superman is coming out. I'm gonna go see it tomorrow night. I don't think it's gonna be amazing. I don't think it's gonna be terrible, but I don't think it's gonna be amazing. But
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited for the new DC animated film with Trigun. I don't know if you guys have seen the trailers for that. It looks really good.
Wait, what Trigun? Like Trigun the anime?
Not Trigun, the demon Trigun. Sorry,
Oh.
Trigon.
Oh my bad. I'm thinking Trigun the anime. Like, wait, what's DC doing?
Yeah, Bash the Stampede.
That would be awesome. I'd be so on board for that. No, it's their animation. Like I don't love them all. Like a lot of people think that like they're all flawless, but I think they're good. They're better than the Marvel ones. The Marvel ones are terrible, but I don't know. It's just something about those movies. Like I don't know if I don't even think they know what they're pandering to. Not kids for sure. Not adults. Not teenagers. They're just like not comic fans because the comic fans seem to just be more pissed off when they watch it. So I don't really, and mainstream obviously doesn't like it. So I don't really know what they're trying to go for, and that's got to be on the producer of the whole thing. It can't be anything other than that because they're the ones that get the final go ahead and they greenlit these projects. So Suicide Squad, like you were saying, I think it's going to be hopefully the first one in this universe that feels different and kind of fun. Doesn't have to be Guardians fun, but just fun and more just like crazy. I just want a crazy movie that's like an acid trip for superhero movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, you got any final words to say, Jay?
No, I'm really I think a lot of people are giving it a bad rap because they went expecting it to be something that it wasn't again. Because, like I said, the DC is still new to the game. They're trying to get into it, and we've been getting a lot of mixed DC stuff from other directors and stuff like that since Marvel's actually taken over with doing what they've done. So I think everybody's going in with these certain expectations on how superhero movies are supposed to be told or formatted, and not getting what they expect, like with what happened with Man of Steel, and probably what happened with this one. So I'm going in with an open mind this time because I didn't do that last time, and seeing how DC is going to do it. But I mean, outside of that, writing a comic book versus a novel, it really depends on what your passion is for creating. Like some people will know, like you'll know. There's no question about, oh, I feel like I'm a better novelist than. No, you'll know. If you are in love with the words more than the picture, you'll be a better novelist. Don't ever second question it, and don't ever second guess it, and just go for it. And if you feel like, man, I need to see this stuff, find another way to write a novel and the art, or just go for the comic book, for sure.
Awesome. Well, James, do you have anything else you want to say?
Final thoughts. As far as Batman vs Superman, I'm still gonna go in open-minded. Sometimes I like movies that aren't rated too well. Like I liked Watchmen a lot, and I really enjoyed Amazing Spider-Man 2. Besides, I know a lot of people hate that movie, but so if this is enjoyable, fun, I can give it that. But I still, in the back of my mind, critique it. But I'm still excited for the universe in general. Just I love comic book movies, so the more the better for me. As far as novel versus comic, it's to me is always going to be, for me personally, it's going to be, I love both, and to do both is exciting, even though both take extreme amount of work, especially doing them at the same time. I think I'll always do them, or at least I'll always write, whether it is in comics or just my own novels or short stories. I think it's just to make something and have somebody read it or look at it there's just an amazing feeling. So definitely will always keep doing it. Whether I ever become famous or not is another question.
Awesome. Yeah. So for me, I'm gonna go to Batman versus Superman, open mind, like you guys said. I try to look for the good in things, so I'll try to do that. I'm still more excited for Suicide Squad, and I'm hoping there's gonna be some allusions to that. But I think we're gonna have those moments where they do amazing things. I think we're gonna have those moments where they do stupid, terrible things. So we shall see. In terms of writing novels versus comics, I mean, I'm not saying one beats the other. I think you should write what you love. I think they both have their own sets of challenges. As you're writing a comic, you gotta script it panel by panel sometimes. You're writing a script, you gotta, not a script, writing a novel, you gotta lay out a lot of different ways to describe things. That's from my perspective. But you gotta do a lot of stuff. You gotta be very descriptive and help craft a world. So I think they both come with their challenges, but for me, I'll always enjoy writing a comic more and having that first page in my hand. Ooh, it's gonna be amazing. But anyway, my name is Joshua Harper. I am joined by my co-host Jerry One Hero, and also the very talented James Desantis, which you will be able to check out all of us in the description below. And we will see you next week. Bye.
Remember, greatness lives within.
Shut up, Jay.